well, communication's two ways. It's about what the person you're talking to hears, right? We were in a situation where a customer's certificate expired. And if they go bad, it can actually break certain applications. Certificate going bad is the responsibility of our customer in this case to renew and send to us. And I was having a conversation with our customer about it. And the customer says, well, we're not going to penalize you against your SLA for downtime. My response, and it was a half joking response, and I didn't mean it to be offensive or anything. I was like, well, that's good because according to the contract, we weren't at fault. And sometimes you're better off not saying everything that pops into your head.
Welcome to Customer Unsuccess, the podcast where we cut out the noise and talk with real leaders about their hardest lessons in customer success and other go-to-market motions. I'm your host, Joe DeGrande, and in each episode, we're going to unpack real challenges from real leaders, failed tech implementations, a strategy that didn't yield results, or difficult customers. But more importantly, we're going to take those lessons learned and share them with you so that way you can avoid those same mistakes with your team. So if you're in customer success, sales, or other go-to-market motions, stick around to hear from the best. Now let's dig into it. On this episode, I sit down with customer success leader and co-host of the Customer Success Playbook podcast, Kevin Metzger. He has over 20 years of experience and shares a story on how a remark about an expired SSL certificate almost derailed an 8-figure renewal and the exact steps he took to rebuild that trust and steer the relationship back on course. Really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you do too. Now let's dive in. Well, let's do it. We got some time, so thanks so much, Kevin, for jumping on the Customer Unsuccess podcast.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. No, absolutely. I know we got lots to talk about. Kevin Metzger is actually a customer success leader with 20 plus years of experience. I'm excited to have you on here, kind of your story. We're obviously going to talk a lot about communication today, but he's also known as the AI assistant guy. He's doing tons of great stuff with AI. So if we don't have time to talk about it today, definitely hit him up for sure, because he's got a wealth of knowledge there and seeing how it could, create efficiencies within your day-to-day and in CS. And he's also the host of the Customer Success Playbook, which I've been on. Great podcast. It's in a variety of different segments, so you get little bites of knowledge. But yeah, so Kevin, I know we talked a lot about the theme of the show today is like communication, right? Like in customer success and other go-to-market motion, especially client-facing, communication is kind of key. And there also could be some repercussions if it's not done well. So I'm curious, to hear your experiences or a particular story that, we chat about and see, what we can learn from that.
Yeah. Communication is always, it's always critical, and it's always been, a focus. And I generally consider myself a pretty good communicator. And I enjoy having conversations. I like telling stories. It's how I got into the podcast stuff and all of that. But everybody makes mistakes, and everybody's got learning experiences. And when I was moving into one of the more senior roles I had with the large enterprise diamond level type customers, I was pretty new to the role, and we were having a conversation. And it's so much about talking and communicating it's not just the body language. It's not just about what you say or how you say it. It's about, communication's two ways. It's about what the person you're talking to hears, right?
Sure.
And so we were in a situation where we had a customer's certificate expire, a server certificate, right? So I think it was SSL. So basically, if you don't know this, depending on what kind of application you're running, you have to have server certificates that basically validate you are who you say you are to web browsers, you are who you say you are to all of the networks that you communicate with, so that the browser can trust you, and so you can have a interfaced application. And if they go bad, it can actually break certain applications. And so we had a situation where one of the certificates went bad. According to contracts and everything, that certificate going bad is the responsibility of our customer in this case to renew and send to us. And in theory, they should be proactive and own it, right?
Right.
In theory, and according to the contract, they should be proactive and own it. Went bad. We saw that it went bad. It was already late. Like customers call it. We've got customers calling their help desk saying, "Hey, things aren't working the way they should. What's going on?" We went and investigated it and found that the certificate went bad. As soon as we found it, reached out to the customer, said, "Hey, customer, can you renew the certificate? Send it back to us. We'll get it updated right away." And by the way, post this, we're going to add a monitoring thing into our system so we can be notified if a certificate's going to go bad ahead of time, and we can reach out to you more proactively.
Right.
All that conversation was had. Everybody was happy. And I was having a conversation with our customer about it. And the customer says, "Well, we're not going to penalize you for, against the SLA for downtime," because that was the statement. "We're not going to penalize you against your SLA for downtime."
Right. And that came from the client.
Yeah, it came from the client.
Yeah.
And my response, and it was a half joking response, but it was also true in my head, and I didn't mean it to be offensive or anything. I was like, "Well, that's good, because according to the contract, we weren't at fault." And sometimes you're better off not saying everything that pops into your head. Because even though I wasn't changing anything we had done or anything we had, clients like, "Well, what do you mean that's good because it wasn't your fault?" "Well, we needed to get it fixed, and you had to fix it. How could you say this?" Oof. I could get lawyers and contracts, and I can tell you that it was your SLA problem too. I'm like, whoa, I didn't mean this. I did not mean this. This wasn't what I was trying to say. So, I mean, right. And these things happen. It happens. Sometimes you say something the person who hears it takes it differently than the way you mean. I wasn't trying to upset the customer. I wasn't trying not to take responsibility. I do think I would have had to have deep discussions if they tried to penalize us against our SLAs with them because of it, because I really would have had to. But sometimes it's better just to stop, listen, and say, "Okay, thank you."
Right. No, it's it's funny because I'm laughing, I'm dying because it's the things that pop up in your head, right? And like for me, like I have a habit. Oh, should I say something? Should I not? I have pretty wicked ADHD, and it's like there's always things coming into my mind. And but you're right. Some things are just better off just not said. Yeah. But I find it interesting though too, because it's you kind of had it right. Like I think you guys, like in that particular scenario, right? Like you guys were pretty proactive, right, of setting up the notifications so that way you could be a better partner to them. But I think also a part of it is like, hey, no matter how good you were at problem solving, there you could have that one instance that could totally just break like the chain of communication.
Yeah, and honestly, it's rough because when you do something like that, it means you got to go through a recovery process. I think it was about 3 or 4 months in with the customer at that point. We had done so many great things, right? When I got there, there was a backlog of like 150 issues or more. We spent the time to go through that backlog and knock the backlog out. And figure out, and obviously when you have 150 outstanding issues that are there for, months and months, not all of them are still really issues. Somebody just wasn't paying attention and doing their job along the way and closing things out, or realizing things weren't issues, or doing the right troubleshooting. But, I put the SWAT team together to go look at it and make sure that we got that stuff resolved. It was a win. There was a day zero security issue that came out very shortly before this, we managed that fantastically. Proactively notified the customer before the customer security team knew that the day zero issue came out, and were asking us about it. So we had a plan in place, and they were able to proactively talk to their customer. We were doing everything right from a support perspective, and then that issue hit, and I'm stuck in 2.5 months of recovery mode just from that one statement, right? And ultimately, it didn't impact renewals. As a matter of fact, I think it ultimately even helped lead to a renewal. And this was a 3-year, 8-figure contract. So, it definitely
not a small one.
Yeah, not a small contract. And so, but you have to be right, and you have to be consistent all the time when servicing a contract, right? Every time you're right is great. Customer loves you. It only takes one time of being wrong to drive a relationship backwards, and it can drive and lose trust. And you don't want to lose trust with your customer. Especially in the customer success field, right? It's about being the trusted advisor. And as soon as you break that relationship, it's a difficult process to recover. Now, I don't entirely know. I wasn't partially being tested after this process to see whether I would recover well, because we were going into a major upgrade for the customer that we had already been planning for a couple months, and it was about a month and a half away. And there was a lot of pressure on my customer at the time to make sure that upgrade went very well. And my customer was nervous, and they really wanted to make sure that everything we had was in place. And they were using this as a way to kind of escalate the eyes that were on the project.
Nice.
And see what was happening. We could have done that together, and in the future we did do it together. And I did have conversations with the customer about, hey, let's escalate together about what's happening on the project, so we can make sure we get the service level you expect, and make sure that we've got everybody involved that you're hoping is involved, and all the right eyes. It ended up being a little bit more controversial than it had to be, but my response was, it doesn't matter. I understand why you're upset about this. I wasn't saying what you think I was saying. Hopefully my customer doesn't hear me say that. My customer doesn't hear me say that and take what I just said the wrong way.
Sure.
But right, I didn't mean, but realistically, with the customer, I ended up developing a very good long-term relationship with the customer.
That's great.
But we had to go through a rough patch to recover from the rough patch. And at some point, actually down the road, I asked the customer, because there was another point where I made a statement and the customer started getting really frustrated with me. I'm like, hold up. You know me at this point.
Yep.
I didn't mean to upset you with what I just said. So please explain to me what I said that upset you, so we can try and recover from this much more quickly than we did last time.
Yeah.
And we had a good conversation. And the customer actually said, look, sometimes just the way you say something, sometimes the way it comes across to me is, it feels a little conceited. It feels a little like you're telling me something like I should know it, or whatever it was. And the customer actually recognized and said to me, that's part of how I'm taking what you're saying. It's not really what you're saying. It's part of how I'm hearing you. So again, if you talk about communication, right, there's lessons in communication, not just for me, but also for my customer there. And again, that's how you grow a long-term relationship, is you keep dedicated to it. You realize that people are people, right?
Yeah.
People make mistakes. People aren't trying. And generally, you're not trying to upset somebody else in a real situation. So, and if somebody does get upset, it's not always about 100% about you. It's sometimes also partially about them, right?
Yep.
My customer was under a lot of pressure. There was a lot of things going on. They needed the help. They needed the help, and they were worried that it wouldn't come. And when we delivered, that helped ensure the renewal, right? So
100%. Yeah. I think a couple things I kind of want to touch on. It's, I guess, like one, two. I think a lot of people do actually forget that you are working with people, right? Like I hear a lot of times, people use it loosely, right? Or if you're in sales, you're selling to people, you're working with people, but like genuinely trying to understand the underlying like cause of frustration. Like you'll never really know, obviously, unless you have that more in-depth relationship as far as what's going on with their life and so on. And it's not like that's the goal, right? The goal is just really just to be understanding and just kind of take it from their perspective too, and kind of jump in their shoes and how it could be perceived. And then it's also the other side of it, right? It's perception and in how people interpret things, and obviously different personality types. It's funny, at my time I was working, it was actually during eMarketer days when I was at a research company. I was on the account management and customer success side, working with a ton of international clients. And it was something that we had gotten advice, this is like 10 years ago now, but I still rings true today, where they always told us, be careful about certain terminology that you use or phrasing. Like I would use, hey, something is a stone's throw away, or I can't think of any more on the top of my head, but some things don't translate, or worse, certain words might become off as offensive to the receiving party. But it's true. Like it's a fine line. Communication can have some serious, repercussions or benefits too. But yeah, it is ties all down to perception and interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. The cross-cultural communication issue is something that definitely over time you learn. A lot of people in the Indian culture will say yes as acknowledgement that they heard you, but not necessarily as acknowledgement that they understand. Somebody had to explain that to me. I didn't understand. I didn't know that. And sometimes it's acknowledgement that they understand. You have to understand that that's something. So studying communication and studying communication patterns as a CSM, I think is always valuable, right? I mean, and I'm going to go into AI here for a second.
Sure.
Surprise, surprise, if you know me. But it's the process of human communication and communicating between people while AI is starting to come into the picture is becoming more and more important. So understanding emotional intelligence. This is something I gave a speech to the Atlanta customer success community last night, and we're talking about the job search and what some of the human skills and some of the AI skills you need to really improve on as we're going to move into the age of AI for employment purposes. Is EQ is huge. EQ is huge. Yeah. Emotional intelligence as you go forward and how you manage relationships as you go forward is as or more important than what you know, because what you know, AI already knows.
It's true. It's fact. If something is fact and logic based, I mean, yeah, it knows it. Yeah.
So it's how you manage relationships. It's what's important to you as a human and what's important to the person you're in a relationship as a human that is going to really make the difference in how you grow relationships. I was talking about the fact that SDR agents are one of the most effective AI agents out there right now. And, it's because they don't take vacation. They don't go to sleep. They don't go to the bathroom. They're there every time the customer comes to your website and wants to engage, and they can engage according to your sales process and gather all the right information. But they're not going to close a 7 or 8 figure deal.
Right.
They're going to gather all that information and give it to you as a sales agent. And then as the sales agent, you got all this information and it's all gathered and you know what all the buying signals are of your customer.
Right. Yeah.
And you got to go close the deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we're getting pretty close though. It's actually funny. I was looking at a couple other solutions where, and this is not promo at all. This is just more so just me kind of looking at what's out there. There's one called salesape.ai, and it's actually pretty insane where you could reach out to them. And it's very conversational. Maybe they need to do a little updating on the email formatting, but it's
Yeah.
email based responses on as far as like an inbound inquiry. And it was having communication with them. And then I started talking to it over email about like, hey, do you have any customer success related use cases and customers that utilize it? Sure. Yeah, we're happy to dig into that. We have a ton of customers. Let's set up some time to chat. And it
Yeah.
asks you all the pre-qualifying questions. It's pretty intense. It's
I've
pretty
got a
intense.
question. So I played with that as well.
Okay.
I learned about it from so there's a company out there, and I'm going to share a company's name that's like a consulting company. I have
Sure.
no affiliation with them other than I know one of the people that work there, and that's how I found out about them. But it's called Winning by Design,
Mm-hmm.
and they did a series of white papers, on what they call the bow tie. So it's basically the funnel in to the funnel out. Um, so your inbound funnel all the way up till the sales close, and then your onboarding and out and renewals and all that. It's the other side of they call it the bow tie. And I think they did a series of 8 papers that kind of position throughout that bow tie.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those papers mentioned the sales ape .ai. So and I decided I was gonna. I'm looking for what my next role is in industry. Went and applied to every company that they mentioned in those 8 papers to see, because I could see how I could fit into that had an open role. Sales Ape was one of them, and as part of my process with Sales Ape, I had the same interactions with the email. It was very interesting. I do think that so I should be somewhat careful because I don't want to discredit anything, because I think the email thing was amazing. I do
Sure.
think that there are other agents out there that can interact with you in real time on the site, that I think it's a better model than the email model,
Mm.
because I don't know about you, but I'm not an email fan. I hate email.
Yeah, no, for
Um,
sure.
I I think that model can be easily applied on a site, and I'll bet you they do it. If they haven't done it yet, they'll do it shortly.
Yeah.
Um, they also have some very interesting, and it's an example I've started using. I do speeches with people who are looking for jobs about how AI is impacting the job search.
Mm.
Because of SalesApe, I'm talking about how it's impacting it from an AI perspective, and tools that they're using in the uh, on the recruiting side, and why you need to be knowledgeable about AI, and how you need to be able to use AI as a candidate to be able to, also represent yourself well, because they're using it to filter you out. So you got to be able to use it to filter yourself in. So, but
It, yeah, interesting perspective too. Yeah, I think it's kind of like the concept, right? Where um, at least, I mean, thankfully, I'm not dealing with this now, but I had bad memories as far as when I was in whether in college or high school, but like how kids are using it to write papers and essays, and then there's the AI detection tool in order, and then there's the reverse AI detection tool to make sure you're not
yeah,
spotted. It's
well,
there's crazy stuff out there for sure.
yeah. One of the other things as the AI assistant guy thing that I'm working on putting together a few workshops. One of the workshops I'm looking at putting together is for parents and kids who are in like the middle school to high school range,
Mm,
on really having discussions about how to use AI properly, because
yeah.
you can use AI to help you write a paper better, or can you use AI to write a paper for you?
Right.
If you use it to help you write a paper better, you're going to learn through the process. You can ask it to interview you. You can ask it for interview me to help me come up with topics, right, for the paper. Or this is the general area. I need to come up with some topics. I need to think. Here's what I'm thinking. Can you give me some other suggestions around this?
Mm,
So now you're using it to substitute your thinking about what you're going to do. Okay, I've done this. What's my next step? Well, you should come up with an outline. Well, this is the general outline I've been told to use. Is it, or because my teacher gave me an outline somewhere that I need to do my intro paragraph and my three
Sure.
paragraphs of explanation. Does this make sense? And how can you help me understand how to do this better? You can ask those questions and then write your content, right? Okay, now that I've written my content, or research your content. I've got to research the content. Can you help me research the content? That's not an unreasonable thing. You've already been using your computer to research content. Now you can use AI to do it and synthesize it a little bit better. Or go into Notebook LM and use Notebook LM to discover your resources for what you want to research, and then make a podcast out of it. And because the point is to learn, right? So you're going to learn
Right.
about your topic. You're going to learn about how to write. So make a podcast out of it. Look at how it fills out the mind map in Notebook LM, and figure out how to figure out the timelines. Let's say you're talking about history. What's the timeline? See how it lines it up for you. And then you can really start taking all the concepts and say, okay, now how do I synthesize this into a new paper, and start writing down your thoughts or recording your thoughts, and because you're composing your paper, and you're not having AI do it for you. Now you're using a tool the way a calculator is meant to be used. You're using AI as a tool to help you do it better, faster. And then, okay, so this is my first draft. I've dumped it. Maybe I've recorded it. Maybe I typed it. It doesn't really matter, because the idea is to get the ideas out. I've got the ideas out. How do I make it better? Can you help me as an editor learn how to edit myself to make myself better? Tell me suggestions back. Don't necessarily do it for me, but give me suggestions back. Now I'm learning about how do I improve my grammar? How do I improve my how do I improve my communication skills? So really, at any rate, I completely off topic, but it's think about how to use these tools. What I'm talking about for school and for writing a paper right now, right?
Sure.
But it's the same thing whether you're applying it to school and writing a paper, or whether you're applying it to communications and how you communicate with somebody, with where we talked about at the beginning. I bet if I took the scenario I was describing I was in and said, I really made this big mistake, how do I recover from it? Or what are some suggestions you have for ways to recover from it? I may have been able to recover even more quickly. I mean, I did come through a recovery. I think, like I said, there were things that were outside of my control that probably still would have been outside of my control, right? I knew that the release coming up was a big impact, and there was a lot of pressure being put on my customer because of that. And so maybe that was why that was leveraged for that scenario. Maybe it was something else, right? Probably initially it was really just the way I made the statement in a way that it just was too off the cuff. It was too flamboyant. But could have I recovered from it quickly? I'm sure I could have.
Yeah. It's interesting though, and it's not necessarily totally off topic. I think it's relevant because what's interesting with AI actually, and whatever the tool it is that you're using, we're now entering in a space where we're trying to actually learn communication with the said agents, right? Like I think you were basically just explaining like, hey, you need to kind of tell whatever it is that you're using, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, whatever it is that's out there, in order to figure out like what the output actually is and know how to properly communicate. And now prompt engineering roles are popping up, and it's a big need. But it is interesting, right? It's like a whole nother element of communication, but you're communicating day in and day out. I mean, even actually another example of a tool that I actually used in the past for helping me with my communication, even for sales calls or even podcast prep and so on. I don't know if you've heard of it, sesame.com. Again, found it totally by accident. They're not even like a paying product. I think it's more of an experiment than anything else. You could have actually up to 30 minute calls if you log in, and with an AI, like a verbal conversation with two different agents. One's Miles and one's Maya, and it sounds like a real person. I'm not talking about some of these other tools, won't name specific ones, where it's a little jankety and there's too many weird pauses and it just sounds a little inauthentic. You can kind of catch it if you pay attention. We're talking like it sounds like a person. Like I remember on a Saturday night, we're all hanging out, my neighbors and my wife and I threw it on the computer and we're like having a conversation with this bot. And it was actually scary and fascinating at the same time, but again, we're entering a new world of communication, and it still rings true that that's not going away. I think that's kind of like the key theme here. But
yeah. No, you're right, and you're correct. It is about learning how to communicate with, in this case, with an AI versus a human in it. But yeah, it's definitely a skill set that is going to continue to develop as we move. And I think I'm hearing rumors that GPT-5 will be released in July.
nice.
And that's going to be a whole new level of communication because, true O3 is thinking on the O4 model, which
Right.
sort of doesn't make sense, but it's using the O4 design to add a thinking model to it. But O5 is a native naturally thinking model, and we're going to have some. It sounds like it'll be very interesting the way communication will shift with AI when it comes out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess we're this is awesome conversation. I just want to kind of like a couple things to kind of wrap up, right? In the sense of what's the actual takeaway, right? So going back to the story, right? We have a customer based on the perception / interpretation of what was communicated to them, kind of derailed the thing, the whole relationship based on the issues that kind of occurred. I guess if we were to kind of tell the audience, right, what some of the things to do differently, like the takeaway there as far as what to avoid. The obvious one is, right, it's hey, maybe say less, as they say nowadays. Is the phrase I hear keep coming up, but but I'm curious from your perspective, right? I guess it's twofold, right? What do you do to prevent it? But also hey, how do you best, if it does happen, right? No one's perfect. How do you come back?
Yeah. So I actually think the stronger takeaway is the recovery method or the recovery process, because to be honest, people make mistakes, right?
Of course.
Say things, you can say something and mean it one way and it can be taken a different way, right? Communication is a two-way street. So you have to understand that. And if you're taken wrong, understand that means what you said was interpreted by the other person in a way that was offended. Whether or not you meant it to be doesn't actually matter. It matters how they received it, right? So that's the first takeaway. And in all honesty, I think that's something I understood at the time. I understand now. I think it's because I understood it that I was able to recover from it. If you don't have that understanding, that when you say something and the other person hears it and takes away something that you didn't mean from it, that's your fault. It's not theirs. It means you got to work on being the solution. And if you work on being the solution, you'll recover from it, even if it takes a while. But you got to be dedicated to it too, right? Because you don't know what else is going on. You don't know why they're holding on to it. If they hold on to it for longer than you would think they should, or something like that. And you got to be dedicated to, especially forget whether it's a business relationship. This is true in life, right? You got to be dedicated to, look, my intent was not harm. My intent is to recover from this with the other person in the relationship. And if that's your intent, and the other person will eventually understand that, as long as you keep acting in that way consistently. So how you act consistently after a miscommunication is so important, because miscommunications are going to happen. That said, you should always look at how you are, understand a little bit about your own nature. Because I too am ADD. I too am a little bit quick on just saying whatever pops into my mind. So
Sure.
It's also good to learn to edit what you say. in some situations, you're going to be better at it than others, right? So it's a practice, just like anything else. You want to get good at something, keep practicing it.
I think it's a good, it's a good way to kind of actually segue into something else, to kind of wrap up for the audience. I'm always curious to hear what people are doing to kind of learn and continue to better themselves, right? It could be, I know obviously right now AI is top of mind for you, and you're learning tons of stuff there, but I'm just curious as far as like, there's anything that maybe either you're currently reading or a course or things that you would recommend just to continue your learnings. I'm always curious. Like I got a ton of books behind me. Like I'm always looking for new ways in which, to kind of better myself and then obviously to help the audience.
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the books it's a book I picked up actually last year sometime, and that I'm currently reading. It's a Gartner published book. I had it in my backpack and I thought I pulled it out this morning, but it's not sitting there. But it's called When Machines Become Customers.
Mm.
And it's a very interesting book. I've been referencing it a little bit recently in some of my speeches because machines are already doing buying in a lot of scenarios. No, that's not it. Sorry, I thought I might have had it right here.
No worries.
I think really it's an interesting read because from a customer success perspective, you don't really think about the automation piece of the buying journey, but we're moving into much more of an automated buying journey on low ticket and mid ticket items. High ticket items, you're going to have human interaction. I don't think you're going to have machines making decisions, but I think you're going to see a lot of machine decisions coming up here really in the next 6, 12, 18 months on even things like, hey, I want to travel to, my next trip. I want you to plan my next trip, and ChatGPT with O5, I think it'll probably be able to go out, plan the trip, and you say, yeah, this is perfect, or make these changes and book everything for me, and it will. I'm pretty sure you'll see that in O5.
It's crazy. Yeah, but I don't disagree. I think we're getting close. It's pretty crazy. But well, Kevin, enjoyed this conversation. I guess like where can everybody find you?
Yeah, I mean, best place to find me as of right now is still on LinkedIn, Kevin in Slack, whatever, www.linkedin.com/in/Kevin Metzger, KevinMetzger. There hopefully will be a site up at Your AI Assistant Guy very soon. Nice. That'll be youraiassistantguy.com. And yeah, those are going to be the best places to find me right now.
Awesome. No, we'll definitely put those in the show notes and the description, to call those out. But Kevin, once again, really enjoyed this conversation. Enjoyed the story and the learnings. Thanks so much for coming on.
Awesome. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Joe, for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you got some value from this conversation, hit subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share it with someone who's also out there trying to build a better customer success or go-to-market strategy, even if it's messy along the way. And if you want more frameworks, tools, automated playbooks, check out jodastechtouch.com and subscribe to our newsletter. That link is in the description. Thanks so much for being here. Keep building, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one. Quick note before we wrap, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The ideas and opinions shared here are of my own or those of my guests, and don't reflect the views of any current or former employers, clients, or partners. We might reference tools, platforms, or companies, but nothing shared here should be taken as fact, endorsement, or criticism. Do your own research and always consult your team or legal counsel when making any business decisions. This content is not legal, financial, or business advice. It's just us sharing what's worked, what hasn't, and how we've learned from both. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.